Ramp Paladin has seen a ton of optimization in the past week, but I believe that I have found the best 2 decks to play this archetype successfully. Ramp Paladin, or better known as Cheese Paladin, has solidified itself not only as a top contender in the Hearthstone ladder, but also in the Masters Tour Open Cups as well. But before we begin this video, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel and like this video if you'd like to see more deck guides in the future. Now let's talk about why you should play Cheese Paladin versus other Paladin decks. Big minions, constant pressure, and surprising synergies. These are the ingredients chosen to make the perfect ladder-breaking deck, but the devs accidentally added an extra ingredient to the concoction: scamming games. In addition to cheating out large minions, the combo with Allura on coin literally wins you the game right at the mulligan if your opponent cannot deal with the board generated. But don't take this combo right at face value. While this combo does look game-breaking and it should just win every single game that you end up playing with it, this deck can still win without a high roll, and this is the most important skill to master if you want to optimize your win rate with this deck. Scamming games is important for your MMR, but winning through regular tempo games is going to make you win with this deck more consistently, so you're going to have to be able to play this deck without the high roll. Now let's jump into the deck lists and the card decisions, because in this deck particularly, there's a lot of controversial picks in the final list. There are 2 lists I'd like to look at for our card discussion segment. The list featured on HS Replay, as well as NaySyl's Open Cup deck list that I referenced earlier. In case you guys don't know who NaySyl is, she's a competitive Brazilian player who's actually very active in bringing esports to the Brazilian scene, so shout out to her. But she's already qualified for the Masters Tour Ironforge with 4 top 8s in Open Cup finishes. So she's been mostly playing Ramp Paladin, so I really feel like this deck has a lot of potential, and a lot of people have not talked about it, so I'm glad that we're going to be able to feature this list. But I do believe that we need to talk about both of these deck lists, because I feel like we're like a week or 2 away from people finally solidifying on what they believe is the most optimal version of this list. And there's a lot of different card decisions that are put into this list, because it was a very janky deck at the beginning. But now that people are finally starting to realize the power of this deck is very consistent, we need to realize, what works, what doesn't, and why it doesn't work. So let's compare the lists side by side. The HS Replay list has a typical build with no Amalgams and Strongman, while NaySyl's list has a Cult Neophyte, Libum of Judgment, as well as Amalgams to replace the Strongman. Which leads us to the first question that is always asked whenever I play this deck live. Why do we run Circus Amalgams when it ruins the Red Scale Dragon Tamer's consistent draw of North Dormo? I believe the answer to this question is very apparent whenever you look at the weaknesses of Ramp Paladin, and its main weaknesses are early game defense and healing. There's almost no healing in this list unless you're playing specifically NaySyl's list, because it's the only list that I've ever seen run Libum of Judgment. But regardless, in the games where you're going up against Rogue or you're going up against a really aggressive deck, if you play your Norse Domu when the Rogue has Secret Passage or when Druid has Savage Roar, it can easily lose you the game. So in these situations to where playing Norse Dormo is just going to be an instant loss, you need to be able to, still have a really strong turn 4 if you don't have your Allura combo to go off with it. So the main reasons why I really like the Circus Amalgams in this deck is because in the games where you have to play for tempo, which, it's going to be most of them, you don't get to scam every game, but in the games where you need to play for tempo, it could be a really easy way to put off your aggro opponent just a little bit to buy yourself that key turn to put yourself back ahead. The Amalgams can really slow your opponent down, not only just with the HP value, but with the mana that you're not giving them. This may seem like a really simple observation, but your opponent really needs to be able to remove the Amalgams, especially if they don't have any easy way of getting rid of them. So therefore, it's going to cost them some resources. So therefore, if you're able to play the Norse Dormo after they play out some of those resources, killing off your Amalgams, if you're fighting an aggro rogue, usually play 1 or 2 cards into it at least. But when that happens, suddenly the game is massively in your favor because you didn't enable, some other move as early as you could have. Suddenly, playing Norse Dormo on turn 6, maybe even turn 7, can give you that accelerated window to play your big minions earlier, while also not giving your opponent the mana ramp that they need as early as possible in order to blow you out. And we'll discuss later when and when not to play Norse Dormo, but the main reason to run Amalgam is that the body is just so meaningful and actually is very impactful. Against the OTK Demon Hunter in particular, they can clear the Allura high roll fairly easily with just a Moarg and an Immolation Aura. But if you have the Amalgams on the field, then suddenly that combo does not kill the entire board. There are 3 minions that survive, both Amalgams and the Allura, which essentially give you 11 damage. If you didn't have those Amalgams on the field, that is 8 damage that you are losing because you didn't run this card. So I really do believe that there are pros and there are cons to running this card, but there are more situations to where you want to play the Amalgams because there are more games to where you need to play on tempo, and there's just more games to where this card synergizes with the rest of the deck almost perfectly. And speaking of perfect synergies, tip the scales. You know, getting some taunts is actually very useful in a lot of aggro matchups, especially when you're getting aggroed down and you just play the Allura combo against like a Zoo, for example. If they end up playing like a really big 8-8, you want to be able to have something to be in the way of that 8-8 in your face, because there's a lot of ways that aggro decks can still beat you, even if you do the Allura combo. Rogue in particular, it just has a weapon that just keeps hitting you in the face, so you need something that can eventually stop the face damage. And that's actually very common in this meta right now with Bomb Warrior, with Weapon Rogue, and even to a lower extent, Demon Hunter. Pretty much what I'm trying to say is the rush minions are really, really impactful whenever you get your tip the scales value, but sometimes the taunts can win you the games in just the perfect situations because you're fighting a deck that just can't deal with any taunt minions. Hopefully this will shine some light on some people that were really off-put by this tech decision, but I really do believe that this is correct to run in the deck. If you're not going to run Circus Amalgams, you can take it out. It's not 100% necessary, but I would highly recommend playing them if you're looking for a really synergistic list. But now that we have that controversy out of the way, let's go ahead and talk about the other cards other than the high roll combos. Number 1, Sphere Sapience. This is one of those cards that just makes your scam a lot more consistent, so you may not 100% need it in the deck if you're just, you know, trying to make a few budget cuts for the cards that aren't 100% important. But I would say that this card, if you can get it, is very important to get, because if you can scam a game, that just spikes up your win rate by like almost 90%. So you want to try and get every single possible chance to giving yourself that high roll. Now, Sphere Sapience is a little bit of a tricky card, which we will go into later in terms of like the strategy behind it. But the biggest thing to keep in mind with this card is, you know, don't just put every single card at the bottom of your deck, especially depending on what the matchup is, because you may need some particular cards. But the general advice with this card is that you run it in the deck to give yourself the Allura combo as consistently as possible. And speaking of Allura high rolls, number 2 is Wand Maker, because you need a minion that gives you a spell to combo with Allura, and just getting a free 1-mana spell is extremely useful, actually. Even like getting secrets every now and again can be exactly what you need to put yourself back ahead, such as, for example, Oh My Yogg. If your opponent decides to play a 0-mana card or play the coin against you, they can maybe hit a Forbidden card, which will kill all their mana, which will prevent them from being able to, you know, use their turn. So there's a lot of ways to where, you know, the Wand Maker spell is not only good for just giving yourself the Allura value, but also just giving yourself a little bit of value as well. Because like Crab Rider with Blessing of Might, for example, really good combo if you can pull it out. But I would say the hardest card to make useful out of Wand Maker most likely is the Shield of Honor. You'll have to set that up in the previous turn by either putting it on a damaged HP minion from your opponent's side, or you know, setting it up for yourself. But regardless, Wand Maker is mostly in here in order to trigger the Allura. Number 3 is going to be Cult Neophyte. NaySyl is the first person that I saw use this tech card, and since then has been completely taking the Open Cup meta by storm. It just makes sense to run this card because it's good against Token Druid. It's good against the Mirror if you're not on coins, so therefore you can stop the high roll turn maybe just one more turn, so you can play down Norse Dormu, and maybe not play Norse Dormu in that situation. But regardless, like the Cult Neophyte sets you up for an amazing early game against like Rogue, against Druid, and against Paladins, where you just really need to be able to have it. Another really good matchup is the Ramp Paladin matchup, so that way you can prevent them from spamming pins and spamming the Librams on you over and over again. Priest board clears become a little bit more awkward depending on what turn you throw it down. But most importantly, the OTK Demon Hunter has extremely weird choices to make depending on when you play this, because you can stop Skull, you can stop their draw, and you can even stop their combo turn every now and again. So it's just, this is one of those cards that really does feel like a good idea because it rewards you for being able to play it at just the right time. Number 4, Underlight Angling Rod. This is a pretty good weapon to give yourself some kind of like decisions in the early mid game. Like I said earlier, this deck's weakness is being able to survive against aggro decks, especially in the early turn. So being able to have a weapon to trade into at least a 3 HP minion, say like a Dark Glare, a Greyheart Sage, anything that just comes down on the board on like turn 2, turn 3, you have a little bit of you know, interactivity with it. And the best part about it is that it also gives you some minions in case you have like a lot of big stuff in your hand. So not only are you proactively getting rid of stuff for your opponent, you're also giving yourself minions that you can also play to keep your opponent busy. Number 5 is Lord Barav. I would say that if you do not have this card, it is really hard to play Paladin and Warrior right now because it's just so good. Barav Broom is the only way that you can reliably kill the board, and if you're being pressured against a deck that's making bigger minions than you, such as like a Druid deck, it's been coming back a little bit. I'm not saying that Druid is really good, but regardless, there are the matchups, especially in the mirror, to where you need to be able to have your Barav Broom value to put yourself back ahead. There's also situations to where like you can clear the board and then play, your 4-mana 8/8 on top of that to give yourself some pressure. But the main reason why you need to run this card is because it does not have any other ways of clearing the board outside of other typical Broom plays and Tip the Scales plays. So your Barav Broom is just very necessary in this kind of deck. Number 6 is Strongmen. It is still up in the air about how I particularly feel about this card in general, but the idea is that you get another 6/6 body on top of whatever big minions or big spells that you happen to play. But in a lot of games, it really does feel like this is the 30th card. I would bet that more people are probably going to drop this idea than others, but my friend Mansion has been very sold on this card slot in particular. So he's been playing this deck around top 500 Legend about all season. So I'm still up in the air about how I feel in this card, like I said earlier. But it's a pretty decent synergistic pick with after you play your Norse Dormo, just to make sure that you for sure have a taunt on top of whatever you play, because sometimes you're not so lucky to get you're not always lucky enough to get your Scrapyard Colossuses. So this is one of those cards to where you can play it. I personally wouldn't recommend it because I like Circus Amalgam better than this card, because Circus Amalgam gets played more often and it gets pulled from Tip the Scales. So I really feel like this card is probably on its way out, but if people want to play it for now, I can definitely understand it. I just don't believe it's the most optimal version, in my opinion. Number 7 is the Libram of Judgment, another tech that was first decided by NaySyl from her tournament lineup, and I'm really not sure if anybody else has been really picking up this card. I myself had decided to try this card in an open cup yesterday, and I ended up going to either round 4 or round 5. So like, this card is actually pretty decent due to the fact that you don't have any healing in the deck. Usually by the time you corrupt this card, it's not really going to matter that you're getting the healing. You're either winning the game through pressure or not. But having an Ashbringer essentially in your deck to deal an extra 15 damage can maybe be the reason why you win a lot of games, especially against like I would say against OTK Demon Hunter, maybe, if they just keep removing your board over and over and over again. Maybe against Warrior, you just need to be able to grind them out over time, so that extra 15 damage can really make a difference against armor. I think that this card is probably going to be more popular as this deck becomes increasingly more powerful. But I do believe that there are some people that don't think this card is that good, and I can understand that. So if you're on the fence of running this card, I could definitely understand your worries. But in the right matchups, especially against like slower decks, maybe, I feel like Libram of Judgment could actually be that key card needed to finish a lot of core games for you. And the last card we'll talk about is the Dark Moon Rabbit. Yes, this little guy finally has a home, but unfortunately it looks like he's being evicted pretty soon because a lot of people are opting to cut him at the moment. So the Dark Moon Rabbit finally had its time in the sunlight, but it's probably time to hang up the rabbit. When you have this when you have this against a massive board, it is obviously insane, and this card keeps you ahead whenever you have those situations. Especially after you bring out your Norse Dormu, you can maybe just spend a turn to just remove in order to bring yourself back ahead. Plus, the synergies with N'Zoth, if you have even more removal on top of that against control matchups, it absolutely slays. However, there are more matchups to where this card just doesn't do what it's supposed to. Maybe if you're fighting a lot of mirror matchups, this could be a really good card to put into your deck. But as of right now, with the Rogues, with the Paladins, with a lot of the other mid-range style of decks that are evolving at the moment to try and counteract these combo decks, I don't know if Dark Moon Rabbit is going to be able to make the cut in the next week. The main issue with the Dark Moon Rabbit is that it lacks proactivity. Like, you're not able to just throw it down against your opponent and feel that good. You need to be able to play it into your opponent's board somehow. And this deck, you don't want to be too reactive. You need to be proactive. So that's the main reason why I'm suggesting to not run the Dark Moon Rabbit at the moment. Now that card decisions are out of the way, let's go ahead and move on to the Mulligan. I won't discuss matchup-specific Mulligans because they are very similar across the board, but the Mulligan for this deck is actually very easy. As the nature of this deck is to scam your opponent, you really only want to keep the key scam cards. Most of these cards you will need to keep in pairs though, because just keeping some of them by themselves is not really what you want to do. I would say that if you're on coin, the only cards that you want to keep by themselves would be Allura, Sphere, and when you're off the coin, keep the Norse Dormu and the red scale Dragon Tamer. Now, the cards that you want to keep in pairs on the coin would be Norsdormu with whatever 10-drop. Because usually I would not even keep Norsdormu in my hand unless I have a card that goes with it perfectly, just for the chance that I get to play my Nolora combo that much more consistently. You could also keep Norsdormu if you have Tip the Scales in your hand. It's a very easy way to be able to cheat the combo without Allura. But more times than not, you just want to be able to keep the pair cards that have amazing combos. So Allura and Sphere, Allura and Wandmaker when you're not on coin is a great way to mulligan. For the combo when you're not given the coin, obviously. But you really want to be able to maximize your chances for the scam. So your mulligan is just the best way to do that, because this deck doesn't have a lot of card draw. And to be honest, if it did have a lot of card draw, then you would probably be drawing your key combo cards in hand before you could actually play them and, you know, play the Tip the Scales from your deck. Like I said earlier, in some cases you can keep the Tip the Scales or the Colossus Scrapyard, but that's only if you have the Norsdormu in hand. And like I said earlier, you need to be able to really think ahead about what you're trying to set up. You can't just keep Norsdormu in your hand if you don't have anything that's that reliable on it, because then you're just relying off the top decks. You're just relying off the top decks, and there are some situations to where you need to do that because that's your only out. But you don't just want to limit yourself to that kind of game plan right from the get-go at the mulligan. If you're ever against an aggro opponent, such as a rogue, you can argue that keeping a Crab Rider or a weapon can be correct. But in my experiences, if you're going to be behind on tempo very quickly if you're trying to play cleanup as early as turn 2 or turn 3. Your aggro matchup is naturally your worst, so keeping cards that are defensive may not work in the exact way that you want. I would still just mulligan for the combo, especially against like Stealth Rogue in particular, because by the time that they're hitting you in the face and you're trading your minions away, they've already gotten the value that they need, and they're just setting up more ways to kill you. So I believe that you need a better strategy than just picking up after your opponent. But now that we've talked about a simple yet somehow complicated mulligan, let's go ahead and get to the general strategy of how you win with this deck. The 3 big questions when playing this deck are: when do we Nas, how to correctly use the Sphere, as well as how to maximize your board pressure. So the second most popular question, when do we play Norsdormu? The simple answer is as soon as possible if you have a way to use the mana immediately. So if you have Tip the Scales immediately in hand, if you have a 10-drop that you want to be able to just throw down to corrupt your clowns, these are all great ways to be able to use your Norsdormu. However, you need to realize that there are some matchups that love having 10 mana. So for example, OTK Demon Hunter, Highlander Priest, Control Warrior, all of these decks are really good at being able to clear your boards, and if you give them 10 mana, suddenly it's not a problem anymore to not have the key cards that they need, because if they just have a Plague of Death, a Brawl, or the Moarg Immolation turn, or maybe some extra spell damage, then everything gets cleared. And the last thing that you want is an OTK Demon Hunter to get a skull against you, because that's usually how you lose that matchup. But regardless, like, you gotta be able to play your Norsdormu, even if your opponent is going to be able to get some value out of it, because you have to be able to enable your proactive game plan and not just worry about what your opponent is doing. But regardless, when you do play Norsdormu in these kind of situations, then suddenly the question becomes, how many turns in a row can they clear your board? And so this will tie into how you maximize your board pressure here in a second. Giving your opponent mana isn't the issue here, it's them having the answer. So if they have the card in hand and you play Norsdormu, then if you would have waited to play your Norsdormu anyway, and then, you know, naturally gain the mana, then do your, like, whatever combo or, like, whatever setup turn, then they're gonna have that card regardless. So if you just play Norsdormu, force that card out of hand, and then maybe you can play another big card that forces yet another removal tool, that is one way that you can use the mana for your opponent very, very effectively, because they'll throw out some cards maybe in a suboptimal way. I feel like at High Legend that's not as likely to happen, but if that doesn't happen and they don't remove the cards, then suddenly you get to go face for damage, right? So I really feel like with Norsdormu, you really just have to play it as soon as possible, unless you are worried about your opponent literally killing you the next turn. So case in point, if you have Norsdormu, Colossus, and Clown with Yashiraj in your hand, no matter what, your opponent needs to be able to have clear after clear after clear with this board. So you play your Norsdormu first, right? Let's just say we're fighting a priest. They play Death, they get rid of it. We're like, okay, that's fine. Next turn, we play Colossus into, let's just say that we have Strongman in our deck. I usually wouldn't play it, but let's just say for the sake of example, you do have it here. Colossus into Strongman comes down. Your opponent, having only one way to clear it, probably is just going to be able to use their Plague of Death very, very easily. But then suddenly you play your Clown, your opponent plays Vargoth into the Dragon Breath card, and then suddenly when Yashiraj comes down, maybe your opponent doesn't have what they need in order to clear that board. So like, this is just one of those decks that really does force your opponent to have the answer every single turn if you have the pressure boards that you really need to exert to be able to win the game. So like, you just really got to be able to try and think ahead, and it's one of those things to where even if you do assume your opponent may have one of those cards that counters you, getting the 10 mana is probably going to be better than not, because your deck literally feasts on having 10 mana. A lot of these other decks literally, they don't have a card that ramps them up this consistently, so they're not really expecting to get this kind of value all the time. But I would say that the biggest thing about playing your Norse Dormo is that you just have to be as proactive as you can, because there are things called being too reactive in Hearthstone. Starting to see the power of this deck, yet the slight nuances that come with it, it's not exactly the easiest thing to pilot. On the flip side, if you don't have a way to utilize Norse Dormo's mana, you have to ask yourself two different questions. Can you use the 8/8 body in order to pressure your opponent, or is it just going to be one of those turns that you have to make in order to maybe top deck an answer? In some of these cases, you may just have to throw down your Norse Dormo regardless, because your game plan is somewhat dependent on you being able to get your 10 mana ramp as soon as possible. Again, the matchups are very, very important, so this is just one of those things to where it's going to take a few trial and errors in order to really get this down. But I would say probably 90% of the time, maybe 90% of the time, you're always going to play your Norse Dormo. The only time you just really don't want to play it, like I've said many times in this video, is when you're clearly giving your opponent a very easy lethal. If a Druid has a lot of cards in their hand, if a Rogue has a lot of cards in their hand by the time that you're doing this, it's probably not safe. In addition to thinking ahead with Nas, this deck really does force you to have to use your Foresight. And this is very, very apparent with the Sphere of Sapience inclusion. So I thought that I would need to be able to have its own segment, because this card is not as easy as it seems. A lot of people would just immediately try to go for the combo as soon as possible, which you know is very, very understandable. You just want to try and get the win as soon as possible. And luckily for some people, they'll be able to get that. But the biggest thing when keeping Sphere in mind is that you actually have a card in your deck that reshuffles your deck, which will make the Sphere placements on the bottom completely irrelevant, which in a lot of games can actually help. So McGurgle has a very key aspect in this deck, not only to giving you potential to play the Prime with Broom, with a bunch of other like synergies like that, but it's also to give you a chance to be able to use the cards that you place at the bottom, because especially after you play your Tip the Scales turn, suddenly like those big 10 drops that you put at the bottom of your deck become a lot more impactful if you need to close the game out with them. So I would say the biggest thing when it comes to using your Sphere is to really, really think ahead. If you have McGurgle, if you have the combo already ready to go, it doesn't matter how you use the Sphere. But in the games where you don't cheat out the combo or you don't get McGurgle, you really need to be able to remember and think about, is this the card that I want to put at the bottom of my deck? Do I need Clown to win this game? Do I need whatever card that I'm drawing here? Like, if it's a little 2-drop minion that doesn't really do much in like the mid, almost late stages of the game, probably time to get rid of it if you haven't gotten your Allura combo. But in the early stages of the game, you just kind of want to go for the combo as fast as possible. And lastly, how do we properly maximize board pressure? This is just one of those decks to where you just aim to make the biggest board that you possibly can. Aside from like, you know, the Highlander Priest, Control Warrior, and OTK Demon Hunter matchups, you just really want to be able to throw out as much stats onto the board as early as possible. And since you have several different ways of being able to generate boards very, very easily, you really just want to be able to just pressure, pressure, pressure. You have Clowns, you have N'Zoth, you have Death Rattles that come back with the Colossus. Like, you have a lot of cards that are always on the board no matter what. And a lot of the times, just being able to deal 7 every single turn with maybe a weapon on top of that is more than enough. So I would say that, like, as much as you want to be able to try and play as many stats as possible, the only matchups to where you don't want to go 100% wide would be against Priest, OTK Demon Hunter. OTK Demon Hunter to a degree. If you have a lot of big minions, that's fine. Clowns are the only exception, I would say, because they can be cleared with Moarg. And then obviously Highlander Priest. So with those matchups, you really want to be able to think about how your opponent can clear the board and how many AoEs they have left, because sometimes with this deck, you literally have more ways of pressuring the board and, you know, going wide on the board than your opponent has AoEs. Control Priest, for example, doesn't exactly have everything that it needs, doesn't have as many Plague of Deaths as it would like. Warrior has brawls and it has ways of killing you with the Silas OTK, but if you're pressuring them, it's not much of a problem. OTK Demon Hunter is a lot more in the air because the combo can come out as early as turn 7. But regardless, this is just like one of those things to where you just make the board, you go wide, and especially against aggro lineups, you don't have to worry about them clearing. And now for the last segment, let's go ahead and move on to the tips and advice that I have for this deck. Tip number 1, always go for the high roll. High roll wins games. High roll scams games. You go for the scam. The scam will literally win 10 to 15% of your games if you play this deck a lot. It is that powerful, and you need to just try and rip it as consistently as possible. It's exactly like Big Priest. Remember Barnes? Remember that card, Barnes? You go for Allura every single time. Almost every single time you go for it, unless there is a clearly very obvious better play in your hand, such as coin Nordormu into Tip the Scales. You just go for the high roll. Best advice that I can give you. Number 2, keep track of your cards at the bottom of your deck. Especially if you don't have your Murmur Gurgle, it is going to be very important that you essentially play the lethal puzzle of how do I win the game without these cards. So try to not put yourself on a line that is very, very dependent on your synergistic cards, because sometimes you'll need that card in your hand in order to win the game. But I would just say that, especially when it comes to spheres, try to get your Murloc combo out as soon as possible, because if you get your Murmur Gurgle out onto the field and it gets and the prime gets shuffled into your deck, then the spheres does not matter anymore with whatever cards you put at the bottom of the deck. Suddenly the sphere is just really, really good to find the cards that you need, which is the main reason why we put it in here. We put it in here because remember what I said earlier? Always go for combo. Number 3, don't get frustrated with missing the combo. It is going to happen. You're not going to win every single game with the combo as much as you may try. Like, you do want to try mulliganing for it every single time if at all possible, but there are the games to where you just can't force it, and you have to be able to realize that. I would say for uncoin, never play your coin unless you're never play your coin without your Allura, unless you're coining into like a Nordormu, or you're coining into like your Tip the Scales and you haven't gotten your Allura yet. The only time you really want to use your spells is when there is no longer a chance for the combo, or if suddenly the combo doesn't work as efficiently anymore. So I would say that especially with this deck, you really got to keep track of your cards, and you really got to make sure that you don't get frustrated with missing the combo, because you have ways of winning without the combo. You have ways of winning with tempo, and that is, like I said at the beginning of the video, the most consistent way you will win is with tempo. Tip number 4, your HP is sacred. You have lots of taunts, but you have almost no healing unless you decide to play the Libum of Judgment. And even if you do run that card, it still needs a corruption in order to start getting some healing. So most likely, you're not going to be getting almost any healing at all if you play this archetype. So always watch out for sneaky rogues, always watch out for Demon Hunter lethals. That key number for OTK Demon Hunter is 24 a lot of the time, and if you, even with your gigantic taunts, it's not going to make a difference if your opponent bursts you down. I would say that's another main weakness of this deck, is just face burst if it goes over taunt minions like Kane, spell damage, all that other kind of stuff. But your HP is sacred. Try not to take too many value trades unless it's absolutely necessary. And the last tip for today is that the free wins will come, but you need to earn them first. This is pretty much just me recapping everything that I've said with this deck, is that it's not just a scam deck, although in the games that it does scam, it is just a scam deck. But in the games that don't just, completely scam your opponent, you have lots of ways of being unpredictable with your large boards, taking over the game very, very quickly. So you have to be able to use that to your advantage. Use your synergies, use your large boards, pressure your opponent. Combo will come. The combo will always be available to you in a lot of your games, but you have to be able to win the games that don't always combo. And that is my take on Ramp Paladin. I do believe that this deck is actually not too toxic, believe it or not, because Tip the Scales will be rotating soon. And to be honest, this is the first time that we've seen Allura completely break the game. Like, we've seen, Libum of Hope and that kind of stuff be really, really effective on turn 4, which can, sometimes scam games. But this combo is the biggest scam that Allura has ever had, and I don't believe that this card is going to be nerfed, because rotation will naturally take care of this deck, and it's not like this is a problem in Wild. But in any case, I'm going to leave some games with Mansion's list with the Strongmen, so that way you guys can make the assumption yourself on whether or not you believe that the deck is actually that good. Something else to consider is that I also have Amalgams in my deck as well, so the main reason for this is so that way you guys can understand, Amalgam good in this situation, Amalgam bad in this situation, Strongman good in this situation, Strongman bad in this situation. And that's the only reason why I decided to run both in my list. But regardless, I would highly recommend running the other two lists, the H's Replay list, or my personal favorite is NaySyl's, just because of the tech decisions, but I would highly recommend playing one of those two lists aside from the list that I am playing in the clips in front of you. But that deck code will also be down below in case you want to try out that deck. But in any case, guys, thank you so much for tuning into this deck guide. If you haven't already, feel free to like this video and to subscribe to the YouTube channel. The deck code is down below, all 3 of them, in case you want to try out some different builds of this archetype. And as always, we stream at twitch.tv/ClarkHellScream if you ever want to catch any of these clips live. I hope you guys enjoy scamming the meta game after game, and we'll see you for the next video. Mansion, I think I might want to get some tips from you if I'm gonna make a video about this though, because like here's a situation that I always wonder: do you keep the 2-drops because they're good, or do you not keep them because you're not on coin and you don't really care about that? I feel like Murmur Gurgle is a decent 2-drop to keep, and we just save this. You don't keep them? Okay. We'll just straight up get rid of them though. Go for high roll. I'm assuming that this is just one of those decks. Like, I mean, I've played this a lot. I've had a decent amount of experience, but Mansion is a way better player than me when it comes to this list. But I imagine that when it comes to this archetype, it's just you just go for it. Like, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you go for the maximum odds? Wait, is this Highlander? You always hard mull for that or Norse Darmu? I just play that on turn 2. I have Murmur Gurgle, the Broom, worst case scenario on turn 3 if I need to play it, but that's not gonna happen. I thought this would be Mozaki, but what is this? What is this list? What is this build? My God. What is going on here, chat? Okay, now I definitely want to go for Norse Darmu. If it's counterspell, it probably doesn't matter. I just realized that I copied an older list without Strongman. That's probably why I felt like Yashiraj is out of place. Yashiraj is still played. Yashiraj is played because of the clown shenanigans, which we might be able to do here pretty soon. I kind of want to just trade this, actually. Because I don't care about these minions going in my deck. I just care about getting the Norse Dormo as fast as possible, so that way I can play N'Zoth into Carnival Clown. Pretty sure that's the out here. Giving this guy 10 mana though is risky. You want a Wand Maker over the Amalgam? But like, I really want to play Norse Dormo next turn though. I guess I draw a Laura? Okay, I guess that's fair. This will be the one situation where going for it was correct. Okay, but I draw a Strongman, so now if I just hit my Norse Dormu, all things are good. Nice. I could have maybe played Broom to get rid of some other stuff with the Norse Dormu, but I like this a lot more. So now I've got N'Zoth into Strongman. Well, if he kills the dragon, it brings it back. So that's the main reason I really just wanted to go for this. Yep, rolling fireball, as expected. Into the secret. This guy's got nothing in his hand though. And now we have double Strongman turn. Here we go. Oh, rigged fair game? Oh wait, this could find Reno. No. 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 Okay, alright, there we go. See, how is Amalgam not in this deck? I know, right? Like, this is just so good. It just goes so well with the N'Zoth. Like, some people are like, you don't care about that value, but it matters, dude. And then the games where you need taunts, it also matters. Oh my God, is this just Secret Mage? Is this just fancy Secret Mage? Guess we do this first to see what his secrets are. Okay, so it's Counterspell and Netherwind Portal now.
You don't pick the one, see?
I don't want to give him a minion out of the Netherwind Portal. So we just win here. Yeah, you just go face and end the game as fast as possible. So that just seems to be the mantra of this deck. Like, just build the big board. Let your opponent suffer. Let the opponent suffer. Seems pretty accurate. So this is lethal, right? Yeah, this is lethal. Oh, wait. Okay, I want to do the fancy lethal because the fancy lethal is the cooler lethal. Yeah, this is definitely fancy. World domination. I like fancy lethals. They make me feel like a pro. See, and that's actually one way I love to use Broom with clowns, so keep that in mind whenever you're trying to set up lethal on your board, chat. Sometimes that could be the right play. Fancy lethal, always the way, exactly. Okay, 584, let's keep it going. Because the reason why it wouldn't have mattered is because if it was actually a secret up, he would have hero powered to play around it. Wait, no, he actually couldn't have played around it. No, that's actually a legitimate thing. Eye for an eye could have maybe won that game. Fighting another Demon Hunter. If I lose to a combo again. Oh my. Fighting Draco. Ah. In which way, kick W? Oh my god, dude. Why do I gotta combo my friends? Why do I gotta combo my friends? I think the last time that I fought Draco, I was literally, the same thing happened. But now that I know that I'm fighting Draco, I know that I can just play Norse Dormo on 4 and not care. Alright, John on, have yourself a good one, dude. Thanks for coming on by, dude. Always appreciate it. Okay. So Draco plays 1-2s here, or plays a 2-2. Nani. Alright, I guess that's rather unexpected, but sure. I'm not gonna rush it because I want him to attack into it. I maybe could have just played the hero power, but then suddenly I'm weak to just his hero power. So in this situation, if he wants to kill the crab, then he needs to, you know, play something from hand that'll be useful to get rid of it, and I don't really care if he's playing stuff like that. But crab just needs to be played here, I feel like.
Demons. Demons.
Muzzle their magic.
I guess that's just for tempo. Cult Neophyte actually seems like a good card to run in this meta. To stop like OTK Demon Hunter and whatnot. At least I can get rid of it. Which is the main reason why I didn't just trade into here. I got 16 OTKs on the line. Why are there only 18 deck slots? That's a question people have been asking for quite some time. Oh shit. Well, Norse Dormo. Time to take advantage of this mana. There's a war leader. I really wish I didn't draw that.
In time.
Should I tell him this is the first Norse Dormo that I played on 4 naturally today? Is that something that'd be BM to tell him? Oh my god, this always happens. You always expect this. And I actually have like, dude, this is actually really bad because I've drawn 2 of my rush cards.
They will never catch me.
The fact that he's high rolling this well.
Step up.
I don't have my Crab Rider, dude. Or at least I have 1 less Crab Rider. And I also have a War Leader in my hand. Wait, can this low roll? Let me draw a Broom. Broom pretty sure wins game. Rabbit doesn't win game. Ow, I hit myself. I mean, I have to do it. I also have this in the Strongman, so. Wow, this is actually really awkward. Huh. So the best way to do this is this way.
Now is the time.
So I missed my war leaders, I missed my other Amalgam, and I had all of my draws. I feel like for the tip the scales higher roll, this was pretty much the lowest roll I could have asked for. But this is still how, you know, how impactful this, you know, this board actually is. Even when you low roll, your opponent has to deal with it. But my Demon Hunter opponent is, you know, an aggressive opponent. Could very easily just play Kane and just, you know, go over my taunts. But it doesn't look like he has a way to get rid of it. I'm gonna smack follow again, even though you didn't smack the windows. Well, thanks again for coming on by, dude. Really do appreciate it. Hope you had some fun. Hope you learned a thing or two. But yeah, see you in the future, man. Have a good one. Okay, I still got an impressive board. If only this deck had healing. If you could actually fit Nazari in this deck and not, like, suffer, I feel like the deck would be insane.
This way, you fools!
I can't believe he's actually making this card useful. Good lord.
I got you, friends.
So Rabbit wins the game here, right? Yeah, Rabbit wins game. I don't have lethal. Rabbit too good, man. Rabbit too good.
Now is the time.
Cast cards cost one less. I have to swing face with this. There's no way that trading there is correct. What can you do with outcast cards? Skull? That's it? Pretty confident that's it. How can you find 7? Consume magic? Very sure this does it. This is like gotta be the most interesting Demon Hunter aggressive build that I've ever seen. You know, leave it to DracoCat to come up with this kind of shenanigan. Freaking line hopper, man. I can't believe it. Thick or sick, lol, fat booty text. Wee. I know you heard the announcement, less random generating effects coming. Wait, what announcement? Has there been a Hearthstone announcement recently? I would like to know when it came out. Curb them RNGesus. Did they finally give out like an announcement about the whatever rework? 'Cause that's what I want to know about. Okay, he's actually still alive by 1. Oh wait, no, but I have War Leader, so it's over. Easy peasy. This. I'm sorry, Draco. This is the second time that I played Ramp Paladin against him, and I just have it. Like, it is what it is, but welcome to Ramp Paladin. Just play your high roll and you'll win games. I might need a link. Okay, I only keep the Wand Maker. We're fighting a Hunter? What? Hunters exist? Hunters exist in Hearthstone? Check Regis's YouTube video where he went over the Twitter thread. Oh, okay. So something Dean spoiled something for the future. Okay, gotcha. Didn't you lose to one earlier today? Yes, but I was playing a jank Druid deck, and the guy was playing a more janky Hunter deck that was bigger than what I was anticipating around, which is really freaking annoying. But that game didn't count because I was playing a deck I've never played before, and that Hunter deck was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. In terms of what we've been seeing today. I can't play that. I was about to jam it just to try and protect this, but it just isn't worth it. Including some info for the classic revamp? Ooh. I will definitely have to keep my eye on that then. Oh, we got it. We got the high roll. I'm not going to swing face because I don't want to... Actually, I probably should have swung phase. What am I thinking? I should have hit first and then played the taunt. That was a terrible move. You didn't have Strongman in this list the last time, did you? No, I wanted to try out the Amalgam list by itself, but now we're running both without running the weapon. And the weapon actually doesn't seem like it's that necessary anymore since aggro is not that common anymore. And if you think about it, even in the aggro matchups, it really doesn't help. I would argue that like when you're trying to go for like, you know, mid-ranging control and stuff like that in the early game, maybe the rod can help because, you know, dealing with minions can be helpful. But in the early game, there's not really that many like 3 HP minions you want to clear unless you're fighting like maybe Enrage Warrior, maybe Zoo, and you already have a really bad matchup in those. You have a bad matchup against Zoo. You have a better matchup against Enrage, I would say. But running both because taunts are useful is what I would recommend. Both just seem really good. If this gets returned to my hand, I don't care.
Become the hero this world needs.
Wait, hold on a minute. What happens if that hits Allura? Does Allura's ability trigger? Also, that's interesting that the Murloc died and then I still didn't get the other slot. So we just learned a few things today. I feel like that was actually bad ordering because I could have returned the other one and then I could have kept the taunt alive. But I was trying to play around explosive. But yeah, it didn't matter. Didn't matter. See, even when you misplay with this deck, you are still going to win if you play the Allura combo because that's how impactful it is.